Peace family, in today's video we are finally going to be getting the ceiling boards prepped and ready and installed in the RV. If you don't know by now and you haven't been following along, everything has been gutted in the ceiling, so we're going to be putting up some boards. I got Eastern Whitewood. I was initially going to get a more expensive red cedar because it just smells so amazing and it has naturally rot resistant and resistant to a lot of insects and things of that nature. However, I got a very good deal on this Eastern Whitewood. It's native to where I live and it was just so cost effective. So I got nearly 200 square feet for less than $200, and I'm gonna have to seal it and stain it, which I probably would have had to do anyways with the cedar, so I'm not too strung out about it. And it's got a nice grain pattern. It looks really cool, and I'm just gonna be using a red cedar stain on it, which is a stain, sealant, and varnish all in one. But firsthand, we've got to get that one side sanded down with 150 grit, and that'll allow the sealant and stain to really soak in and penetrate the grain. So we're gonna have to do quite a lot of sanding. I'm gonna be doing it by hand because I don't want it to be too aggressive of a sand, using an orbital sander or a rotary sander or something like that. So I'm gonna take my time, do a nice job, and then we'll get this cleaned off afterward, stained, and then we'll worry about sizing things up on the inside and deciding where we're gonna start our first boards, etc. Gluing it up, tacking it up with the nail gun and all that jazz. So first things first, let's get these boards opened, lined up. I'll be able to do probably 2 packages at a time, and I've got 13 of them, so I'm only gonna have to do it 6 or 7 times. Alright, let's go. We've got them sanded down, and some of them have a little bit of rough areas, so I'll put the ones I find that are a little not great into its own pile, and I'll use those for when I need shortcuts, so I can eliminate having something like that in my ceiling. But for the most part, they are pretty beautiful. I mean, look at that, it's almost hypnotic. So this is the coat I'm using. It's an all-in-one, as I mentioned, and it's cedar tint. So I'm gonna get this open, try it out, see how it looks, get the first coat on. That looks super dark. I don't want it to be too dark. It's gonna be a reddish, but I'm definitely only gonna have to do 1 coat. There's no way I want it to be darker than that. That color is pretty crazy. It looks really dark in here. Obviously it's concentrated in the can, but I'm gonna do a test area on one of the boards that's a bit darker so I can see just how dark it's gonna look. But it's gonna be a reddish color, but probably most likely only gonna need 1 coat. Alright, so it definitely is very red, and we'll definitely only need 1 coat, but it looks pretty good. So I'm happy with that. Alright, we've got the first coat, and probably the only coat on this first set of boards here. They look really good. I'm pleased with the color. I think it looks pretty solid, and you can still see the grain nicely, and they turned out pretty much just how I wanted them to. So I'm gonna continue doing what I've been doing for the rest of the boards. It's gonna be a while, but it'll definitely be worth it. And then once they're all finished, I'll take some measurements and start working our way up there. All right, look at that. That is 140 square feet of now cedar boards. So, well, red cedar, because it's Eastern white, which is also technically cedar, but these are looking really good, and they dried pretty quickly too, so I'm happy. They'll be pretty much fully cured by the time I come back. It's only like an hour dry time to handle, so that's pretty cool. And they turned out really well. I also just had just enough. I had the tiny bit extra, so naturally I did the lids for my toilet. I do have to make a cut in this, like pretty much all of that for the toilet seat, but might as well do it first, and I can probably do the inside lip with like the very, very little remainder that's in there, so whenever the time comes for that. But yeah, the color is really nice. Definitely not doing 2 coats, it'll be way too dark. I don't want it to be super, super red. It won't match anything else. This is nice. It matches my counters for the most part. They're a little more gold, but it'll also kind of tie in the darker woods up here with the lighter woods here, and it also matches my little accent trim pieces. So this thing keeps falling down. It's so annoying. But yeah, now we can plan on working on this, sizing things out, and then making cuts. Alright guys, we are back, and we're going to be finishing the ceiling boards. We're going to be getting them installed. I'm about to make my first cuts, starting dead center from the front to the first fan here. I'm making note of all my measurements as I go. This is 67¼ inch that I need to cut the first boards to, so we're going to start with that, get those in, glued and tacked with the nail gun, and then once we have those first 4 or 5 boards in, then I'll start to work my way outward. I'll go this way first, and then I'll go this way, just because there's less cabinet here, more there. I'll have to make more cuts here. So I'm hoping I can get them nice and close to the cabinets. That's my only concern. Just with the spacing, I don't want to have to split a board lengthwise. It proves to be pretty difficult when you don't have a table saw. I can do it, but they're really thin and I don't want to crack and damage boards, so I'm going to do my best to mitigate that. But we're going to get started, and then we'll see what happens from there. Okay, I've got some of my first cuts made, but I've changed my mind. Rather than starting dead center like this and working my way out of there, I would have to put a spline on it so I can work from both ways, which I don't want to do. So I'm gonna start in what seems to be the trickier spot on the driver's side here. I'm gonna start in here, work my way up until this point, and I have just enough space for my 5th board to come out like that, so I'm gonna slot it in. Come on, bro. So I'm gonna slot it in, and I'll have that about a 1/4 inch of space, and then it'll continue. Right, so I'm about to start on the driver's side, and I'm gonna be using foam board construction adhesive just in the front area, and then I'll switch to a regular construction adhesive towards the back, and in my furring strips I'm just using a simple brad nail gun, and this is mainly just to hold it up while the glue cures. This is going to be doing most of the heavy lifting once it sets. So I'm going to start over there, get those first 4 boards in, then we'll make that notch cut and make our way across as best as we can. I'm also going to have to put in some notches, drill out a hole for wherever these line up, and then I'll put some wood filler or something on top of that, and then try and stain it again. So that's the plan. It's not ideal, but I couldn't get these raised up any higher than they are, and they were necessary, so that's just, sometimes you gotta make some exceptions. Alright, we've got our first 4 boards up, and now we're on to the slotted board, which I've got cut out here. My blade, the tooth is kind of large, so for a board like this it's not ideal, but I don't have a smaller tooth blade. But we're about to slot this in, and it goes right up until this point here. So we'll be covering these wires here, and I'm just gonna make sure that they're really secured, plugged in before I cover them up. But it'll be going here, then our next one comes out, and then we'll get up until this point here where we have these bolts, and I'll make sure I drill those out prior to putting it up. It is kind of tricky to do, so make sure it's centered and all that, and I want it to look decent. I am gonna plug them up, but I still want it to look relatively good without it, so hopefully this isn't too hard without a second person. Use this as my second set of hands. Go. That's on. Hang on a sec. Okay. Whoa. That's not terrible. It's a bit too big though, but it's alright. Lines up nice. A little large, but it's my first one, so I'm learning. I'm gonna tack these up so I can let go, and then... Alright guys, little update. I've gotten, I'd say, just past halfway, and it definitely is coming along. Looks really nice in the areas that, like, if you look at it like here, this is how it'll look when it's finished. And it definitely makes a big difference. I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's like exactly how I wanted it to look, so I'm thrilled. The only disappointing factor is that I have to drill these holes for the bolts because otherwise they don't lay flat, and I screwed this one up pretty bad. So, but I have a plan for covering them. I'm not sure how well it'll work, but I think it'll be cool. And we'll see how it turns out, but I gotta get these finished first. It's been like 4 hours, and obviously I haven't made the most progress, but doing this by yourself proves to be a bit tricky. Not only making all the cuts, but then sizing out the holes for the bolts, making sure they're lined up, trying not to fuck them up as bad as I did that one. And also I had to solder these wires, make them longer. They're actually about to come down through the next one. So yeah, I've been doing a whole bunch of stuff and like making those little adjustments and gluing it and then nailing them, and then I have to hammer the nails halfway because this rad nail gun isn't strong enough to go through the furring strips because it's for quarter round. So I mean, it makes it a little easier at least tacking them in so I can just hammer it instead of having to do that by hand as well. But I'm hoping to get this to here finished this afternoon, and then depending on the time, maybe do that part right there, and then I'll save the rest for the next time I'm available, which will probably be in 2 days. So or maybe tomorrow if my buddy wants to help me out, but we have plans. So for right now, I'm just gonna focus on finishing the foam part and making sure I don't have too few boards left after this. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep going, and I'll see if I can get a time lapse going for you guys, but it's a bit crazy. Grand Rising, people. I managed to get all this done yesterday. I just started working on this section here. The camera keeps dying, so I'm dealing with that, but I'm gonna try and get you a little time lapse of the rest of this before we make our way back to the second half of the RV after this slope here. So once we get to this section, we're gonna have to do a lot of cuts. From here, one board gets almost to the end, so not quite. So I'm debating if I want to do one board to here and then just do a section of boards from here to here as one, and then just run a board straight back, kind of do it that way. I feel like it makes sense to do that. Like, there will be probably 10 boards like that before that we have to start getting into the corners and making smaller cuts. Same with here, coming around the fan and into the bathroom area. I'm also probably just gonna do the ceiling in the bathroom with these boards as well, just to make my life easier, and that way I can run boards straight back into it and not have any seams near the bathroom if I don't have to. Just so that whenever the shower's walls are finished, I can coat the ceiling that I'm putting up right now. I can just coat that with the marine varnish as well. Whether I use a different wood in here or not, I'm not honestly too concerned about it. So we're gonna just finish this up. It's going really smoothly, I must say. So I'm excited. It's looking good, and yeah, the boards are connecting into each other pretty well. I'm happy with how it's turning out. It looks really good already. So without further ado, let's get this day started. All right, the sloped area is finished. I actually managed to get away with this. Look at that. It was a really, really tight fit, and I had to do this panel before this panel and then hammer this panel in, sliding it. Unfortunately, I didn't get the footage. Camera issues once again. Sorry about that, but I'll do my best to capture the rest of this so you can actually see how I'm putting them up, and how I'm making my cuts and things like that, which I think is very important. So this is definitely going to be the trickier spot. Even though I don't have to make like holes for bolts and stuff like I did over here, I do have to take more measurements and make more cuts. So I'm gonna size up a board from the back to the front and see how far it gets me. I think it's like from the very back, I think it's to like right here. So unfortunately it doesn't take me all the way, but if I do it from here all the way back, I'm gonna have some shortcuts here. I'm not sure if I want shortcuts in the back. I think I'd rather just have the seam there, and I can probably just, most of it will be covered with the AC unit cover anyway, and the rest of it I could just put up little tiny molding strips like these if I want. Same with that one there. So I think the plan is start from the back and move up and then fill in this space, or I'll just see where that gets me and then make my cut for like here, and then just have all these pieces from here to here. I also want to do my best to make sure that they all kind of line up as best as possible. So I gotta work with that as well. But you guys will see all of this, I'm sure. Okay, so I gotta make that insert for the closet area. The board obviously doesn't line up perfectly with the edge, so I gotta make a 2-inch inset cut. It's like 46 inches of the board. The 11 1/4 for the just after the slope stays the same, and then just after the end of the closet stays the same as well up until that next max air fan that's running in the back. So I'm going to use the jig and jigsaw, reciprocating saw, whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to get this out as straight as I possibly can. I don't have a table saw, so this is the next best thing. So let's go. managed to get this cut here made, and it is damn near perfect. It looks really good. I had to use the reciprocating saw for this, as I have no table saw once again, but it's all coming together, guys. I've got this medial piece, and then I've got this, and this super tiny one here. I might just put a molding in there, and then I've just got to finish up this here, which is what I'll probably do now, and then I'll do the smaller pieces at the end. So essentially I just need a piece that'll go here over the edges, and then I'll fill this in with some small pieces. I'll probably need to trim inside there as well, and then more small pieces. I'll also have to cover this. Any white wood that you see right now has to be covered. So there's not a whole lot left, and it's really quite exciting. The only one thing that was kind of annoying for me is to get all the seams lined up in the front. I had to run 4 boards from past the AC back, and they're not long enough to get all the way to the back. Everything else was shorter pieces so I could go all the way to the back, but I've just got these 4 here, so there's just a random seam here, which kind of makes it look like there's like a secret door, attic type situation, but it looks fine. It's not that big of a deal, but I think everything else looks super good. On the bends, so right here and right here, I'm gonna put a molding to hide that, make it look more seamless, smoother. But I got the cover for the fan on. That's looking spectacular. And then I actually have a lot more wood left than I thought, so that should be enough to do that there as well. And then I'll need to buy more wood probably for the shower, but I'm probably gonna use a different type of wood anyway, so yeah, it's coming along, guys. Well, guys, the ceiling portion of this is fully complete. I just have the slope in the cab area here to finish up, but otherwise we are finished, and it looks stupidly good. I will be putting a molding on both of these edges here where there's curvature, and I will most likely be putting molding on all of the edges regardless of the fact that they are super tidy. There's just some stuff like the cabinet not being perfect that I would like to address. So otherwise, I mean, look at that cut. That's all one piece. Boom, that's nice. Turned out super good. I am thrilled with how it turned out. And I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. I was considering extending these into the shower, but I decided that I would like to do the walls first and bring them up as high as I can so that the ceiling overlaps that and it creates more of a better gap, you know, or seal, sorry. Otherwise, this is all finished. It took me about 2 full days. despite this being day 3, yesterday was a very short day. I had a lot of things to do. So we're gonna finish this and then we'll officially be complete, with the exception of the moldings and then things like light fixtures and filling in these holes where the bolts are for the roof rack. Otherwise, very successful. Alright guys, and just like that, we are finished. I'm a little short here, so I'll have to take care of that with the molding probably. It should work if I get the right size cord around. I should be able to finagle something that looks pretty good. So I'm gonna have molding there, and then the perimeter, and I'm also gonna have moldings here. So for the 3 bends, there will be a specific kind of molding. There will probably be the same as the sides. I'll have like a modified cord around, something of the sort. And then here I'm gonna have something a little more decorative probably, and something that'll work well with the angle here. So this will probably be a really small piece and something that's not too wide, like not like that, because if I have it straight out you'll see inside the gap, and vice versa. And here I can probably use something small as well. So 2 small-ish pieces and then some decorative trim around the sides just to clean up the edges. This wasp has been following me around all day. And so I'm gonna take the measurements for that tonight and then go get the stuff tomorrow. That is it for the ceiling board installation. The tongue and groove is up. It looks fantastic, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you got a little bit of inspiration for ways that you can get a tongue and groove ceiling in your RV, your van, your bus, whatever it may be. Get an idea of how it'll look, how hard it will be, how much it will cost, the materials you'll need, things like that. So I had a really fun time doing this one, and it really changed the space. Like, it looks a lot more finished now that I can't see any insulation other than that one little strip there. If I just cover it, it looks fantastic. And once the moldings are in and all that stuff, it'll look really, really good. And it already looks like a whole different space. So I'm really thrilled. I hope you guys enjoyed. Consider leaving a comment, like the video if you enjoyed it, and follow me along on my journey. As always, remember to keep love in your heart. I will see you soon. Peace, fam.